This is Lessons from the Field, and as you know, this is a series of interviews we do with a diverse array of guests, all of whom have a common thread, which is a passion for pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences. And today we're featuring Asha Chikani, who is a PharmD graduate from 2007, and she is Director of Pharmacy Practice at Buck. And Buck is a health and wellness consulting company. So I'm going to ask Asha several questions, and I know that her responses will provide a lot of insight on her career and experience to the benefit of students and alumni and friends who may be watching this. So first of all, thank you, Asha, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And if we could just start maybe with having you just walk through briefly kind of your career, what you've been doing since you left UIC.
Sure. So, well, I'll start a little bit before, while I was in pharmacy school, because that's what helped me decide my avenue. So starting pharmacy school P1 year, I assumed that I would go into some type of clinical position at a hospital or clinical setting. And then come second year of pharmacy school, I was very fortunate to take the managed care elective class. And that's what exposed me to managed care pharmacy. So we took a field trip to WHI, which is Walgreens' PBM. Walgreens Health Initiative. It's no longer in existence, but I went into that field trip and realized, wow, there are business or corporate-like positions for pharmacists, a typical 9-to-5 job that you don't have to work weekends or evenings. And that's what initially gravitated me towards these types of positions. And then my P4 year, I ended up doing a rotation at WHI. And I got very lucky that year because I realized this is what I want to do. And AMCP was having their educational conference, that October conference in Chicago. So I went there, I talked to various residency preceptors about their programs, and then I eventually applied through the ASHP match process and was matched with WHI, and I did a residency with them. And then in 2008, just as I was finishing, I was going to start an analytics position with them. And then they had a hiring freeze. So with help from another UIC alum who was my preceptor at WHI, I actually applied to Caremark and their analytics team, and I spent about 2 years in their analytics department. So as an analytic consultant, you don't have to be a pharmacist to be in that department. But what it was is it helped me as a stepping stone to get to what I thought was my dream job, which was being a clinical advisor at Caremark. So I know last time, I believe last week you interviewed Asha, and she has a specialty clinical advisor. So I was her opposite at Caremark, doing specialty and non-specialty for all of my clients. And I spent about a good 7.5 years doing that job. And then I eventually transitioned 3 years ago into the consulting space. So it's it's similar to what I did at Caremark, but I'm on the other side of the table sitting with clients and talking to PBMs instead of being the PBM, if that's helpful.
Who was the mentor that you mentioned at WHI? It'd be interesting to know.
Oh, it was Ryan Sekula. He helped me, gave me a contact at Caremark in the analytics department.
And you said he graduated a few years ahead of you, or he was also a
UIC
alum?
He was a UIC alum. I believe I might have been a P1 when he was a P4, or he might have already graduated, but he put me in touch. So
a great example of the UIC network and how we can make that work. Tell us a little bit more, or maybe more than a little bit, about what your current job is. It sounds very interesting. And I think it would be great for our students to kind of hear what the day-to-day activities are of somebody in this kind of role.
Sure. So as a benefits consultant and within the pharmacy practice, I work with clients. And when I say clients, it could be companies or corporations, their HR benefits team, or even I work with some labor unions. So the fund administrators, the board of trustees, I'll meet with them to go over the benefits that they provide their members. And when I say members, it's called cardholders and dependents, anybody who is benefited from the benefits. So I will work as a liaison between the client and the PBM. I help manage that relationship. I evaluate the benefits deal that client gets from their PBM. So I review contracting terms, discount rates. I help them market their benefits so that they can get various PBMs to bid on their business. Those typically take about 6 to 7 months running through that cycle. On a general day-to-day basis, part of my job is reviewing claims details to make sure that there is not wastage coming through under the pharmacy benefit. So if there are any drugs that maybe require a prior auth and they don't have it, I'll help find that, help them with that. Clients are right now worried about specialty drugs and the spend that it's, the spend is huge. It's about 50% of their total drug spend. Some of the specialty drugs are going on the medical side. So a lot of times I'll review and identify vendors out in the marketplace that can help control some aspect of that specialty spend, either under the pharmacy benefit or under the medical benefit. So again, it's a variety of different tasks that I have on a day-to-day basis, and I'm sure other people will tell you with their jobs, no day is the same. Sometimes I'm working on member questions. So we have a member out in the pharmacy and their PBM team can't, rectify the solution. Maybe I come in to see what's going on, or, there's an appeal. Their benefits were denied, and a client might ask me, what do you think? What's your expertise or recommendation? We had something similar with a client. A 2-year-old or less than 2-year-old was wanting to get Zolgensma, the new $2.1 million medication. And the client denied the benefits initially, but then they went through the appeals process that the member did. And it was brought to my table to have me take a look, and eventually the drug was approved for the baby. So, that's a feel-good story.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. So you're looking at claims at the individual patient level and helping make decisions. Are you also looking at the aggregate level and trends? And okay, great.
Yeah. So at the macro level, so I will, on a quarterly basis, monthly or annual basis, or twice a year, we'll look at the drug spend and trends. So just overall, do they need to make a change in their copays or their coinsurances, the patient cost share? Or, do we need to exclude certain classes of drugs where we can in order to ensure that premiums don't go up for members? So sometimes we're talking about small classes like PPIs or allergy medications that now are available over the counter. That's something we can take out of the benefit in order to have money to pay for these expensive specialty medications that are coming out. So
yeah, so you're obviously using all of the clinical knowledge you gained when you were at UIC, but you also have financial issues that you're dealing with and data analysis. So it's quite a combination. This is not a question that we talked about in advance, but how did your education at UIC help prepare you for that kind of, mixture of roles that you have?
Well, I got an excellent clinical education from UIC, but the managed care elective class and Joanne Stubbings' class, where we talked about Part D, because I do work with EGWIP programs and learning the hierarchy and the coinsurance and catastrophic coverage, et cetera. All of that has definitely come into play, but being able to be flexible and networking was huge at UIC, and it was able to get me, to at least apply for different positions if I didn't get it. But, that's also, typically understated networking. It's who you know. So definitely to any of the students that are listening out there, take advantage of your time at UIC and network. Keep those relationships.
Great advice. And thanks for the shout out to Joanne Stubbings. Have to put a plug in for her. So Asha, the next question I was going to ask was, we're all thinking about the pandemic and hoping that it'll be over soon with the vaccine, and a lot of pharmacists are involved with planning for the vaccine and so forth. But I'm curious to know, in a job like you're in, that's more population level based, so forth, how has the pandemic impacted your work?
So very timely question. I was just at a board meeting a couple days ago via Zoom, since we're not traveling, but the board is a electrician fund, and they're trying to figure out if they should cover the vaccine with a $0 cost share for members, or should they charge them the administrative fee. and should it be covered under the medical side or the pharmacy? And so we obviously, as a clinician, we don't want to have any burden placed on the member, right? We want them to get the vaccine. So I recommended that it should be on the medical and the pharmacy side. And then we made the decision as 100% cost share. It's something what they do similar to covering the flu vaccine today. So again, we were kind of trying to make sure the benefits complement one another. But on my end of things, it's ensuring that clients know typically this first wave of vaccines that are going to come out will likely be covered under the medical side, because the first responders and those folks are the ones that are going to get it, and high risk patients. And then the second wave of vaccines that will come out will likely come under the pharmacy benefits, where folks can go to CVS or Walgreens or wherever to get their vaccine. So.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That must be really interesting thinking about. You mentioned already, the pediatric patient that you had, that you helped inform decision-making about, but, maybe going back to the job that you perform, and what are some of the ways that you feel that you really have an impact in that position that might relate for our students as they consider their careers and so forth?
Well, so I make a difference on the macro level, right? All of us will, all of your students will eventually graduate and they'll join companies or organizations that provide benefits. So somebody is helping to craft those benefits. That person is people like me. And I help the clients make a decision on drug classes that they should cover or PBMs that they should give their business to, and that impacts, formularies that the PBMs utilize, et cetera. So on a macro level, I'm there to help guide and create these pharmacy benefits.
Great. So I know that we talked a little bit earlier offline about the fact that you kind of come from a pharmacy family, and your husband's a pharmacist and several relatives. And so I'm sure you talk about pharmacy probably more than you want to at home or family gatherings. What is it about pharmacy that excites you? What's kept you motivated over your career and into the future?
Well, I learning about drugs is very interesting. Not just the side effects and drug interactions or how they work, but just especially with the new disease states that are coming out, the gene therapy, drugs that are coming out, and how they will truly impact patients. But there are a variety of positions available for pharmacists. It's not your traditional clinical setting or your retail community setting. There are a slew of positions out there, and I encourage the students and other folks just to take a look. And I talk to anybody else, but we can direct you on different positions available. So within my family, my husband works for a PBM. He is a diabetes product manager. My brother-in-law works for pharma. My sister-in-law, his wife, works for a PBM, but she's under the Medicare side. So, and then my father-in-law owns a retail community, pharmacy. So we're in every space.
That's great. You cover every setting of pharmacy practice. So the next question is one that we've asked a lot of our guests, and I know that over your career, I'm sure you've had a number of different mentors and folks that have given you advice, or your supervisors or managers that have helped you with your career. Or maybe it's not just your career, but also how do you balance your career and all your other life responsibilities, kids and so forth. So maybe you could just tell us if there's a word of advice that you've gotten from somebody in the past that you'd like to pass on.
A couple, again, networking, I can't stress that enough, but one of the other important elements is don't burn bridges. Everyone says pharmacy is a small world. It is, but it's even smaller when you choose your specific niche. So I'm in, benefits consulting. It's a very, very small world. So be able to, if somebody gives you constructive criticism, be able to use that and to make yourself better. And again, just don't burn bridges. You never know who's going to be your boss. And you'll get to a point in your career where one day it's not about what experience you bring to the table, but it's about who you know. So you definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's great advice. And it's something that several other guests have pointed out as well, but it's always good to reiterate. So thank you for that. Let me ask the last question, and that is, you know, you're an alum. Thank you so much for, you know, your support of the college by doing this, and our students. We have students who are listening, and if there's other advice that you can provide to them based on your experience so far, or also, you know, our students who have graduated in the last few years are still kind of finding their way. Any other advice besides what you've already shared with us?
Well, I would encourage your students that are in school right now to take the electives offered at UIC. I think when I went to school, you had a great variety of electives, and that was one of the added bonuses of you know, going to UIC. But more importantly, if you've already decided on a niche, or even if you haven't, talk to somebody who's been in the field that you want to go into. Not somebody as a recent graduate, but somebody who's had experience 10, 15 years. And they'll tell you the good, the bad, the ugly, because eventually, you know, we all get older, we have families, and you know, my husband found out the hard way. He was a community pharmacist and realized that he was working evenings and weekends and he needed a transition. So before you get to that stage where it might become harder to make a change, talk to somebody who's been in the field. It might still be rewarding for them, or they might explain some of the challenges that they're facing and redirect you elsewhere. But it's important to communicate with folks that have already, you know, experienced some of the hardships.
Well, and I think for our students who are listening, obviously contacting Ben or myself, and we can hook you up with people like Asha, who I think you would be willing to be one of those people that students could reach out to. Appreciate that.
I would be eager. Any help I can provide, I'm more than willing to. So please don't hesitate to give my name out.
Okay, great. Well, any final comments or words of advice? Otherwise, really appreciate the fact that you've done this today, and look forward to hearing from our students who might have questions for you.
Sure. No, thank you for the opportunity, and then to all your students. You know, I hope you explore. There's so many different avenues of pharmacy out there, and you know, I can point you, even if you don't like what I do, I can point you to what I know is out there. So thank you.